August tomorrow for today.
Okay. We are picking up from where we left off, which was the last line, the last word almost on the Kaf Amud phase at the bottom. We said Orcha de Milta El Sha'ar Bizion. So the discussion was how much of the booty does the king get? If the king normally receives the booty that was in the treasuries of other kings, that seems that he gets that whole amount. That seems appropriate. Okay, but when we say that with regards to other booty, that the king gets half and the rest of the people, so to speak, get half. Minalan, what was the basis of that? And that's where we ended yesterday. Okay, pick up as we saved Dichtiv as it's written on the top of Kaf Aleph, Amud Aleph, the top line. Labriot. Vayim Shechu Lashem Lenagid Ulitzadok. Says the Pasuk, right? And he anointed him, namely Solomon, like the Lord, to be prince, and Sadok the Kohen. Okay? Makish Nagid Litzadok. So they made an association between that of the Nagid and between the leader of the tribe, so to speak, or the head, the Nasi, and the Kohen Gadol. Mat Sadok Mechzalo Umechzalachiv, where we have a situation where half was given to Tzadok as the Kohen Gadol, and half was given to his brethren. Afnagid mechzalo umechzalachi. So likewise, so in this case, the appointed one, the one who's going to be appointed, as we'll see, as the question as king, okay, he would get half, okay, and the other would get half, okay. But Sadok Gufa Minalan, asks the Gemara, and on what basis is it that Sadok receives, okay, what he did? The Tanya is taught in the Braita. Rabbi Omer says, Rabbi Vahaita le Aharon ulevanav, mechze le Aharon umechze levanav. That half went to Aaron and half went to his sons. So therefore, half to Aaron and half to his sons. So that was the model. So that was the model for Sadok getting half and others half, and therefore the connection to the king, half and half. Okay, starting the new Mishnah on Kaf Aleph, Amud Aleph, dealing with other elements of the king as to what he is permitted.
There's a story. There's an incident in the life of Bnei Israel where they attacked the Midianites, and then there was a whole list of who got what, who got the captains got so much, and they Mishkan got so much, and so on and so forth. Why didn't they use that as the model?
Good question. I don't have an answer, Ben. Okay. Okay.
But Moshe
refused to accept booty, and there was no king, so the rule couldn't be.
True, but even so, maybe he was following the example of Abraham, where he said, "I wouldn't even take a shoelace from him." Right? Okay, that was Moshe Rabbeinu's. Right. Okay, matnitin lo yebelo nashim. He should not have multiple wives, many wives. Ela shmona asrei, but he's allowed to have as many as 18, according to Tanakam. Rabbi Yehuda Omer, says Rabbi Yehuda, marbehu lo ubelvad shelo hiu misirot et libo. So, second opinion on the part of Rabbi Yehuda, he can have as many as he wants, so long as they don't draw him astray, turn him away from Hashem. Okay, now a third part of this machloket, okay, is going to give another answer. Rabbi Shimon Omer, he says, afilu achat umasora et libo. Okay, even if he has one that is going to tentatively or perhaps turn away him from Hashem, harei zeh lo yis'ena, that he should not even marry a woman like that. Im Kain, says the no. We'll see who is it referenced to. Okay? Right? Im Kain, if that's the case, Lamane Amar lo Yirbeh lo nashim. If that's the case, if Rabbi Shimon is arguing maybe not even one, okay, why does it say that may have many? Okay, the afilu ka'avigail, says the Mishnah, because even if she's righteous and of a certain character like Avigail, even such a woman, okay, still there's a maximum number, right? A maximum number.
What was the purpose of all the wives? I don't want to sound naive, but it has to be more than just sexual gratification. What is the purpose of
Okay, some of them were probably as David said, probably military alliance, political.
political?
Okay, all right,
Like having a
That's the
cabinet.
case we have
okay,
today in Saudi Arabia.
Right.
For a while, from different tribes. So they
all right, different tribes, so that that's everything. Okay, let's go on. Lamemra to tell us the Rabbi Yehuda. Okay, this seems to be telling us that in that three-way machloket, right, which we saw that the Rebbe Yehuda said he could have as many as he wants, so long as they don't turn him away from the Hashem. So the Gemara says this seems to be telling us the Rabbi Yehuda darish tama dekra. Does this mean to tell us that Rabbi Yehuda is darshaning the rationale of the pasuk? Rabbi Shimon lo darish tama dekra, and Rabbi Shimon does not darshan the rationale of the pasuk. Vaha ipcha shema'inam leho, but it's the opposite that we've already learned. Why? Tanya, because we've learned elsewhere in a Braita. Amana, bein shahu aniya, bein shahi ashira, a widow, whether regardless of whether she's poor or whether she is rich, ein memash kanein ota. We do not demand let's call it a security or extract collateral, okay? All right, from her. Shenamar, why is that the case? Okay, 1 second, all right. Okay, why? No, that's not the point. Lo, why? Because we have a pasuk that says, Lo tachbo beged almana. Okay, that you should not take the garment, because people may have used a garment as a kind of security, as a kind of collateral. However, what happened according to the Torah is that if you take it, you have to return it to the person, okay, the next day. So what happens? Divrei Rabbi Yehuda. That's the words of Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Shimon Omer, says Rabbi Shimon, Ashira mimash kanain ota. A rich widow, okay, you may derive a collateral from her, okay? Aniya, a poor woman, ein mimash ota. We do not derive a collateral or security from her. Why? V'ata chayav lachzir la, because you have an obligation to return the garment to her. Va'ata masiyah shem ra b'shchunoteha. If you're coming back every day, okay, it's not good to a widow. It's not going to look good, and her neighbors are going to start all sorts of issues. All right, va'amrina, and we say mai kamar. What then is we saying? Hachikama. This is what we're saying. Okay? Mitoch she'ata mimashkina ota. Since you demand a collateral security from her, chayav lachzirla. You are obligated to return her the item each day. Va'ata masi'ah shemra b'shkunoteha. And therefore you're I'm going to say not permitting, you're creating, okay, a situation where there will be gossip about this woman, okay? Alma, and therefore, Rabbi Yehuda lo darish tama dekra. It would appear then that Rabbi Yehuda is not darshaning the rationale of the pasuk. But Rabbi Shimon darish tama dekra, and Rabbi Shimon is the one who may be darshaning the rationale of the verse. Ba'alma, and in general, Rabbi Yehuda lo darish ta'ama dekra. In general, Rabbi Yehuda does not darshan the rationale of a pasuk. Vashani hacha. But it seems to be different in our particular case here. Why? The mafaresh tama dekra. Because he's spelling out explicitly the rationale of the verse. Matam lo yarbelo nashim. Because it says, what is the reason that he cannot have many wives? Mishum de lo yasir, okay? Right, de lo yasur libabo, okay? In other, that is, she does not turn his heart away, okay? From Hashem, of course. The Rabbi Shimon, and Rabbi Shimon, Amar lecha, what would he tell you? Michdei, since, okay, Ba'alma darshinan ta'ama dekra, since normally and regularly he does interpret or darshan the rationale of a pasuk. Imkain, if that's the case, l'chtov kra lo yibelo nashim v'lishtok. So let the pasuk simply say and not give a specific rationale that he should not have many wives and stop right there and be quiet. Va'ana amina. But I might say as follows: Ma ta'am lo yerbeh mishum de lo yasur. Okay, what is the reason that, in other words, I would logically determine on my own, okay, what is the reason that should not turn his heart away? Lo yasur lamali. So why then does the pasuk specifically include the lashon, the language of not to turn his heart away, right? Afilu achat, namely to tell us that even were it to be one wife, right? Umusura et libo, and she is able to turn his heart away. Arezo lo yisa'ena, that in this, regarding this one, he should not marry her. Okay, Ella, ma'ani mekayem, but then how do I maintain and establish what's the pasuk is, the meaning of the words in the pasuk? Lo yarbeh, that he should not increase wives. Da'afilu ka'avigail, even one as outstanding, righteous, character, moral, etc., as Avigail. Hani shmona esrei minalan. So now we go on. Wait a second. Now that we understand this question of the machloket, we now come back to our earlier statement, which was the beginning Tanakama of the Mishnah. Why the number 18? That's the question. Yeah. I'm personally, I'm not sure I would darshan that from the sick. Okay. Were you gonna see?
Because the Torah talks.
Okay. Because there's a specific pasuk that says so. Okay. So what happens? Dichtiv, why it's written. Okay. Why the number 18? Now we're going to get into a little genealogy discussion here. Okay. V'yilodu leDavid banim b'Chevron. And there were sons that were born to King David while during the time that he only ruled in Hebron before he became king throughout the country in Jerusalem. Okay? Vayhi Bechoro, and his oldest was Amnon. Okay? La'achinoam HaYisraelit. So that's number one. Number two, Umishnehu.
No, the key is the wife.
Okay, true, but we'll get to that. We didn't get to that yet. We'll get to that short. Okay, second, okay. Umishnehu Kalev la'Avigail Eshet Naval. Kalev, of Avigail, wife of Naval. Next, HaKarmeli. Okay, next, Havashlishi, Avshalom ben Macha. All right, that's the next son. Third, Vaharavi. By the way, this is important because we get to that other story, Michael. Remember about?
Yeah, but the point is that what we're doing is.
Yes, we're going to reflect. We're going to reflect on the name of one of the wives. Yeah, but I don't want to jump ahead yet. Okay. All right. Varavi'i, and the fourth one, Adoniah ben Chagit. That's the next one. Vahachamishi, and the fifth one, Shaphatya ben Avital. Okay, another one. for Shishi, and the sixth one, Yitraem le'agla eshet David. Okay, notice we have one here named specifically, I'm pointing out, Agla eshet David. Now, we know that also, what about Michal? What about Meirav? What about these other women? Okay, so the Gemara is going to go on. Ela yoldu David b'Chevron. It says these were the ones that were born to David while he was in Hebron. Okay, okay. So now, however, we're going to see a piece of Gemara that seems to suggest at some attempt at explaining not only the number of wives, but also the whole question of why is it that certain other women who were wives of David aren't specifically spelled out and mentioned. V'ka'amar le Navi, and we know that there was this incident with the prophet. This may have been a criticism of Nathan and David and Bathsheba, but we don't know for sure. Im ma'at v'osif alach kahena v'chahena. If, so to speak, these 5, 6 wives aren't enough, okay, then you can add more and more. Okay, now we're going to darshan the words of that pasuk in this statement by the Navi to David. Okay, kahena, okay, more, sheet, that's 6. Okay, so now we get, right? So now we get 12. Vikahena and more, that's another sheet, that's another 6. So we had 6, now 6 and 6. 3 times 6 is 18. Thank you. Okay. Dahavu laho tamne sari, and that would give us the 18. Hold on, says the Gemara. Matkifla Ravina. Ravina challenges us. I might say, Ema kahena, like these or like more. Tarte sare. Okay. That would give, okay, right? That would give me the 18. Vikahena. But when I say and more, okay, what's happening? That would mean another number. Okay, because you could have, we had 6, then you had kahena made it 12. Okay, now you have vi and kahena. Okay, it's going to come up later. So, but that means and more could be more of what you have the 12, double the 12 gives us 24. Okay, that's the point. All right, the kahena esrim va'arba. That's what gives us the 24. Tanya nami hachi. And we have a braita that teaches as follows. Lo yarbelo noshim, yoteme esrim va'arba. Elsewhere, a braita tells us you can't have more than 24 wives. Ulaman de darish vav. And according to someone who would darshan the word vav as additional, what happens then? That adds another number. So that gets us to Arba'im U'Shmona. That gets us to 48 wives. Havu. Okay, that's what they had. Tanya Nami Hachi. And we have a braita that says it teaches as follows. Lo Yarbelo Nashim Yoter Me Arba'im U'Shmona. An actual braita that says you can't have more than 48 wives. Right? Vetana Didan. Okay. Okay, and now we have another braita, okay, which is Artana Kam. My Tame, what was his reasoning? Amar Rav Kahana, says Rav Kahana, Makish Kahena Batra the Kahena Kama, that he makes an association between the earlier more and the later more. Okay. Okay, 1 second. All right. Okay, so what? Okay, so what happens here? Okay, right, comma, right, kahena comma, the early one. Ma kahena comma, whereas the more, the earlier more sheet was 6, af kahena batra sheet. So like the later more is also 6. right? Vaha have Michal. But now we get to the point. What about the issue of Michal? Okay, how come she wasn't listed? Okay, in that group of wives, right? Amar Rav, says Rav, Agla or Agla Zo Michal. Okay, they were one of the same women. Therefore, we're going to ask, how come she's got a different name, right? V'lama nikra shma Agla. Why was she called that? The answer is shechaviva alav ke'egla, that it was a term of endearment. Okay, v'chein hu. Okay, all right. So, okay, v'chein hu amar, and elsewhere we've got other stories. Okay, where a term of endearment is used for a spouse or a loved one. Right? Namely, the example of the story in Samson. Lule charashtem be'eglati v'gomer. That's one example. Umi havu leMichal benai. And did Michal have any children? Why? Because we have a pasuk, v'aktiv. UleMichal bat Shaul lo hava lavlad ad yom mota. And to Michal, the daughter of Saul, she did not have a child until the day of her death. Amar Rav Chisda, says Rav Chisda, ad yom mota lo hayala. Until the day of her death, she did not have a day child. B'yom mota hayala. But the day she died, she had a child. Okay, could it be that she died in childbirth? Exactly. Michdei. Okay, now, says the Gemara, Banim heicha hashiv laho. Okay, how will we consider these? Bechevron. We said those were the ones that he had while he ruled in Hebron. Ve'elu ma'aseh de Michal b'Yerushalayim hava. And the situation with Michal occurred when he was in Jerusalem. Dichti. Okay, well, we didn't get there yet. Don't jump ahead so quick. Dichtiv. Okay, uMichal bat Shaul nishkafa ba'ad hachalom. That Michal was looking out the window. What happens? V'teireh et Melech David, and it says that she saw King David. So that's proof, number one, that it was Yerushalayim, not till then. And number two, it's going to then lead into the whole story of whether she had children or not and things like that. Okay, and what happens? Says the Gemara continuing, Umefazez umekarer lifnei Hashem v'tibaz. And she saw him dancing and whirling, etc., before Hashem, and thought it was despicable. Va'amar Rav Yehuda, says Rav Yehuda, ve'etema Rav Yosef, and others say Rav Yosef, namely shakalta Michal lamitarpatsa. Okay, she received what she was due, says Rav Yosef. Ella Ema, but I would say, Ad Otom Maaseh Hayela. Up until that time, she was capable of giving birth. Until that moment that she made that statement, a comment about them. Okay, Mikan ve'elach lo Hayela. But maybe from that point on, she became unable to give birth, right? Va'aktiv. But again, we have a pasuk that says, Vayikach David od plagshim v'nashim b'Yerushalayim, that David took other women and wives, okay, in Jerusalem. Lemeluye shmona asar, that was to satisfy the number up to 18. Okay, my nashim, what do we mean by wives? My plagshim, what do we mean by concubines? Okay, or pelagish. Amar Rav Yehuda Amar Rav, says Rav, defining it. Nashim b'ketubah b'kiddushin, the women that were wives were married with a ketubah and appropriate halachic betrothal. Pelagshim, the concubines, below ketubah or below kiddushin, without a ketubah and without proper betrothal. Amar Rav Yehuda, Amar Rav, again in the name of Rav Yehuda, in the name of Rav. What did he have? She says, Arba me'ot yeladim hayulo the David. David had 400 young men, okay?
Which could be translated as
Children.
Okay, it could be children, yeladim, but it could be young men who were servants or things like that, okay? Havu hayulo le David v'kulam b'nei Yifat Toar. And they were all the sons of the beautiful captives that David had acquired. Hayu, that's the case. Migdalei bloriot, and they had long, special style of hair, locks of hair. Hayu, v'chulan yoshvin b'kronot zahav, and they rode in special chariots of gold. Umahalchin b'roshei gaisot, and they rode in the front of the armies, in front of the troops.
In all his battles, that
The article said these are not David's children, but children fathered by soldiers.
Okay, so that's what they wanted to give. They wanted to give Zechut to David. Okay, all right. Remember, David got part. He got the royal. He got at least half of the booty. So half of the booty could have meant also the women captives. Okay. No, I don't. I'm not putting it on. Okay. All right. V'hem hayu ba'alei agrafim, and they were masters of fist. They were the strong men. They were the commandos, whatever you want to call them. Okay. Okay. Shel Beit David, a Beit David. Va'amar Rav Yehuda Amar Rav. This is the name of Rav. Tamar. Now we get to a story, a different story that's going to have a moral lesson, but it's connected because remember we just gave a list of all the sons, and who one of the sons were, we're going to see is involved in this particular issue with Tamar in 2 Samuel. Okay, well, I don't know. We'll see.
Well, she was a product.
Well, we'll get to it. Tamar bat Yafat Toar Haita. We say that Tamar was the daughter of one of these beautiful captives. Okay, so she was not. So the relationship, perhaps with David, was not based on formal marriage. Okay, as a Pelagius. However, what happened? Not yet. Not yet, please. Hold on.
But not yet.
We'll get to it in a second. Okay? Then, all right. Oh, so bat Yafat Torah Haita. Shinamar va'ata daberna al hamelech ki lo yima'eni mimcha. Okay? So there was the whole story of one of David's sons. Okay? All right? Who was desirous of Tamar. Okay? And at this point, Michael, now comes the story.
There is a machlekes with the other star. When you're allowed to be with her, we paskin that you get one shot prior, right away, and then if you want to keep her, you take her home, you cut her hair, you give her sex, she warns her parents, you convert her to Judaism. So this girl Tamar was a product of the Bia Rishon. So even though David is her biological father, she is a Georis because she was born and when her mother wasn't Jewish, she was conceived. So she is not halachically David's daughter. So therefore, she can marry as a Georis David's son.
That's
So
where do you have that shot? Where did you find it? Where did you find it?
Shot in the
No, where did you find it? Did you find it in Art Scroll? Did you find?
That's shot in this story.
No, I want to know where you found it. That's all I ask. Okay? So the king, that's what she's saying. That if you ask the king, he will permit you to marry. Okay? That's the whole issue. That's the whole question.
Since she was, there's no halachic. Every ger has no relative.
That's why she said to him.
That's
"Go and
correct.
test
Father won't,
let
he,
marry
he
you."
will let you
That's
marry
not
me.
right.
Okay, all right. Ve'isa kada'atach. Okay, all right, gentlemen. Ve'isa kada'atach bat nisu'in have. And if you think, okay, and if you think, all right, that she was eligible for marriage, okay, achte mihava shayela. Would it be possible, says the Gemara, says that as the brother, that he would be permitted to marry her? How is that possible? Elashmamina bat yafat toar haita. So that's where we now see that the Gemara gives the message that Michael has interpreted for us, okay? And the fact that because she was the daughter of the bat yafat toar, that is the situation, okay? That's why didn't want to rush the explanation. Okay, that's all. Ula Amnon, and as far as Amnon, okay. So what happens? Okay, Vra
Rhea,
Ula Amnon,
he had a friend.
Rhea, right? He had this friend, Ushmo Yonadav ben Shemaya, okay, Achi David, okay, was his cousin, all right. And what happens? Vaya Ish Chacham Vagomer, and he was a quote, smart, wise person. Amar Rav Yehuda Amar Rav, says Rav, Ish Chacham L'Rish'ah. Yeah, he was smart, all right,
Wise
for
and
wickedness, in wickedness. Vayomer Madua Ata Kachadav. He said to him, why are you so down in the dumps? All right. Ben Hamelech is talking to him. Vayomer Lo Yonadav, and Yonadav responds, it tells him the whole story. Okay, Shechav al Mishkavcha v'hitchil v'gomer. Okay, so the story goes, citing parts of the story. Okay, that he pretended to be sick. Okay, that she would come and she would bring him food, etc. Okay, all right. Va'asta le'enei et habriya. Okay, so in other words, what happened? He raped her. In the story. Vatikach hamisharet vatitzok, citing the pasuk. Lefanav. So what happens? Amar Rav Yehuda, Amar Rav Shastalo Mine Tikun. Goes in there when she made him fried foods. Okay? So what happens as a result of that whole scenario? Okay? Vayisna ehamon, sina gedola ma'od. That then his attitude totally changed towards her. All right? And he hated her. My Tama, what's the reasoning? Amar Rabbi Yitzchak, Nema Nikshara Lo, that a hair that belonged to her private area got tangled around his member and made him, what happened? Va'asahu krut shifcha. Okay, that made him lose his ability to perform. V'ki nikshara lo ihi mayavda. Okay, and can we say then that she tied it around his member? Ela ema kshura lo nima v'sa'ato krut shifcha. That somehow in the act of what he did, a hair came around his member and did that. Aini, is that possible? Vahad darash Rabba, and Rabba darshan. My, why dichtiv? What's written there? V'yatzelach shem begoyim b'yafyach. Okay, that it became public, it became known. She'ein lehen levnot Yisrael lo se'ar beit hashechi v'lo beit ha'arva. And it was known, basically, that the Jewish girls do not have hair either under their arms or in their private area. But Shani Tamar, the Bat Yafat Toarhi, Have, that she was since she was the daughter of initially a Gentile woman, okay, okay, the point being, she nevertheless had the same physical characteristics, so to speak, as her mother in that situation. Okay, all right, so what happens? Vatikach Tamar Efar al Rosha, and it says that in that section that Tamar performed certain acts of mourning. She put earth on her head, that the ketonet and the garments she tore, Okay, Apasim Asher Allah Kara. Right, Tana Mishmei the Rabbi Yoshua ben Karcha, and it was taught in the name of Rabbi Yoshua ben Karcha the following, right? Namely, Nadar Gadol Nadra Tamar Ba'otasha. She made a Gadar, I'm sorry, Gadol, a great okay, we could say the takana, but there was a great, I'm going to use the word almost the moment, breakthrough that was done here at that moment regarding to Tamar. Amru and the sages then said, Livnot Bilachim Kach, if this is what happens to the daughter of kings, excuse me, Livnot Hedyotot, to the daughter of commoners, Alachat Kama Vachama. How much more so could it happen to them? Okay? Im litznu otkach. If to young women that are modest, this could occur. The prutzot alachat kama v'chama. To those that are not modest, okay, all right, what happened? All the more so. Amar Rav Yehuda Amar Rav, says Rav Yehuda in the name of Rav. Ba'ota sha'a, at that same time, let's go on, right? Gazru al hayichud v'al hapnuya, that the rabbis made a decree, both in regards to being alone with a unmarried woman, the alpnuya, and being with and regarding a woman that's unmarried. Okay. Okay, but so why did the rabbis have to make a decree? Yichud oraita, huh? Okay, don't we have a law from the Torah that prohibits that kind of activity, privacy? The Amar Rabbi Yochanan, Mishum Rabbi Shimon ben Yehod Tzadek, Remez liyichud min haTorah minayin. Where do we know that there is a hint regarding seclusion with an erva? Okay, in the Torah, Shnei Amar ki yisitka achacha ben imah. Ben imach. Okay, v'chi ben aim masit. Do we say here that there is a situation where the son with the mother, there's any seduction, right? Ben av no masit, but the son from a father is not going to do that. Ela lamar lecha, but rather to tell you, ben mityached imimo. Son can be alone with his mother. Ve'ein acher, okay, mityached im kol arayot shebatorah. But no other can be alone with any of the prohibited relations in the Torah. Ela ema, but I would say, gazru al yichud depnuya. But maybe the rabbi's decree was specifically focused on being seclusion with a non-married woman. Okay, so what happens? We have a pasuk now that goes into another aspect. Va'adoneha. All right. Va'adonia. What about Adonia ben Chagit? Mitnaseh lemor. Okay, so what are we telling us? Okay, so now we come back to the story again regarding that same young man. He claimed, I will be the king. Ani emlok. Amar Rav Yehuda Amar Rav, Melamed Shabikesh, Loholmo V'loholmo. He sought to place the crown on his head, okay, but he didn't fit his head, okay, right? It wasn't, didn't fit him, right? Right, okay. Okay. So what happens? Says the Gemara going on, Vayas lo rechev, and they said, what else did Adoniad try to do to show that he was going to be the king? Vayas lo rechev uprashim v'chamishim ish ratzim lefanav. Yes, there were chariots and runners in front of him, right? My revuta. So here came, what is the situation here? Okay, that this business of this extra situation. Amar Rav Yehuda says, Amar Rav, in the name of Rav, Kulan nutulei tcho v'chakikei kapot raglayim hayu. What they did is they removed the spleen from these individuals, and they also cut the tendons from the feet, and therefore, as a result, they were able to run faster.
On even rocky ground.
Because they were running barefoot. Okay, that's the case. All right, let's go now into the next Mishnah. Okay, we again get to a topic associated with the king. We're going to horse around a little bit here. Lo yarbelo susim, that the king should not have multiple horses. Ela kadei merkavto, except for that of his chariot. V'kesef v'zahav lo yarbelo ma'od, and the king should not have huge amounts of money. Okay, right? Ela kadei litain aspanya. Remember, we had the word aspanya was the military wages. They're for the army. Okay? V'kotev lo sefer Torah lishmo, and he must write a Torah scroll for himself. Yotzei lemilchama, motzia ima. Okay, when he goes out for war, he should bring it with him. Nechnas, when he comes in as well. Hu machnisaimo, he brings the Torah scroll back in with him. Yoshev badin, he imo, when he is in judgment, should have the Torah scroll opposite him. Mesav, when he's reclining to eat. Okay, right? The karabo kol yamei chayav. Okay, it should be opposite him when he's eating. Okay, and therefore, okay, he should read from it all his days. Okay, Gemara. Tana Rabbanan, says the Braita. Lo yarbelo susim, that he should not have many horses. Yechol afilu kadei mekavto uparashav, implying that there should be enough for his chariot and his cavalry. Talmud lomar lo, but the pasuk says him. Lo, I know, marbeh, he should not have many. Aval marbehu kadei rechavo uparashav, but he should have many in order for his chariot and his cavalry. But here, ma'ani mekayem susim. What do I mean when I'm talking about horses? Susim habatlanin. We're talking about idle horses. Okay, horses just sitting around doing nothing in the stables. Okay, minayan she'afilu sus echad v'hu batel. How do we know that even if it's a single horse and it is idle, shahu, that he is then transgressing below yarbeh? Okay, not to have many. Talmud lomar, says the pasuk, leman harbot sus v'chi me'achad. Okay. Me'achad da'afilu sus echad v'hu batel kai below yarbeh susim. That even if, when it says that he shouldn't have it, even if he has a single one, he is transgressing the pasuk of lo yarbeh susim. Lamali, why is that the case? Okay, la'avor, okay, la'avor below ta'aseh al kol sus v'sus. Okay, wouldn't it mean that it transgress for each individual? Okay, horse. Tama diktav rachmana lo. That's the reason that the Torah writes him lav hachi. That otherwise it would not be the case. Okay, so we go on. Hu amar afilu kadei rechvo parshav namilo. We might even thought that therefore he shouldn't even have extra in terms of the chariot and the cavalry. Lo tzricha. No, that's not the case. La afushe. No, that he must have some surplus or some reserve. Okay. Now going on. The kesef is zahav. Okay. He shouldn't lo yibelo el kadeli tain aspamia, not extra money to be able to pay the military wages. Tanu Rabbanan, says the Braita. The kesef zahav lo yibelo, not extra money. Yechol afilu kadeli tain aspamia. We might even thought that wasn't not extra money to pay military wages. Talmud lomar lo, says the text him. Lo eno marbeh. He should not have extra. Aval marbeh, but to increase hu kadeli tenas pamya, but to have enough to pay surplus reserve money for the military wages, that seems to be appropriate. Tama the ketav rachmana lo. That's the reason the Torah wrote him. Ha, lav hachi were not the case. Hava amina filu kadeli tenas pamya. Were the case, I would have thought even to give the military wages. Nami lo. That's not the case. Lo shricha. No, it was necessary. La harvacha. In other words, that he should have at least some surplus. Hashta da'amat lo lidrasha. Now that you want to say that this pasuk is available for extrapolation. Lo yerbelo nashim. What about the pasuk lo yerbelo nashim? Can I darshan that pasuk? My darashta be. What can you darshan? Limaute hedyetot. To exclude the fact that that does not apply to common people. As if, right? Rav Yehuda Rami. Rav Yehuda raises a contradiction, however, right? Namely the following. Kativ, it's written, Vahi Shlomo Arba'im Elef Arvot. Okay, the Arvot, that Solomon had 40,000 stalls, Susim Lamerkavto, for the of horses for his chariot. Uktiv, and elsewhere it's written, Vahi Shlomo Arba'at Alafim Arvot. Susim. Okay, and another pasuk gives a different number, right? 40,000, right? How katzad? How is that possible? Im arba'im elef itztabliot. If he had these 40,000 stalls, right? Havu kol echad ve'echad hayu bo arba alafim arbayot susim. Then each one of the, so want to call it barns or stalls, had stables. I don't want to use the word stables, really.
That's where you put horses.
Yes, I understand that. It's tabluyot. Okay. But you have a section in, that's the stall. Okay. So that you would have had 4,000 stalls for the horses. V'im arba alafim it's tabluyot hayu. And if he had 4,000, let's call it stables for the moment. Okay. Hayu kol echad v'echad in each one. Hayu bo arba elef. There would be 40,000 arvayot stalls for horses. Rabbi Yitzchak Rami, again, Rabbi Yitzchak is going to bring a contradiction. Kativ, it's written, Ein kesef nechshav b'mei Shlomo lemu'umah, that money wasn't worth anything, or silver wasn't worth anything in the time of Solomon. Uktiv, but elsewhere it's written, Vayitain Shlomo et the kesef b'Yushalayim ka'avanim. Okay, that Solomon gave silver, okay, in Jerusalem, like stones, like he gave it away. Right? Lo kasha, that's not a problem. Kan kodem shenasa Shlomo at bat paro. One time was one pasuk is during the time before he married the daughter of Pharaoh. Kan la'achar shenasa Shlomo at bat paro. The other was after he married the daughter of Pharaoh. Amar Rabbi Yitzchak, says Rabbi Yitzchak. Okay. B'sha'ah shenasa Shlomo et bat Paro, at the time he married the daughter of Pharaoh, Yarad Gabriel v'na'atz kana b'yam. Gabriel the angel went down and he stuck a reed in the sea. Ve'e'ela shirton, and come from that reed came a sandbar. All right. Va'alav nivneh kerach gadol shebaromi, and from that city it sprouted the city of Rome. Okay, right? Va'amar Rav Yitzchak, says Rav Yitzchak, mepnei ma lo nitgalu ta'amei Torah. Okay, so what is the reason? We get to a new subject. What is the reason here that the rationale, so we're not giving to psukim in the Torah? Shaharei shtei mikraot, because we have two verses, nitgalu ta'aman, okay, and their reasoning was revealed. Nichshal behen gadol ha'olam. Okay, and namely Solomon, okay, who was the great one of the world, he erred, he fell in that situation. One example, Kativ lo yarbelo nashim, that you should not have many wives. Amar Shlomo ani arbe velo asur. I will have many, and I won't make a prohibition. I won't be turned away. Uktiv, and it's also written, Vahi la'am ziknat Shlomo. I'm sorry. Vahi la'et ziknat Shlomo. And it was at the time of the elderly age of Solomon. Okay. Nashav hitu et levavo. But the pasuk says, in his late age, the women turned his heart away. Uchtiv, and also lo yarbelo susim, that he shouldn't have many horses. Va'amar Shlomo ani arbe velo ashiv. He said, what happens? I will have many horses, but I won't bring the nation, I won't bring them back to Egypt. Ukativ. Okay, okay, but what's the issue? Then it's written, V'teitzei merkava mimitzrayim v'sheish. Okay, but there's a pasuk that says here his chariot came out from, okay, from Egypt. Okay, V'kotev sefer Torah lishmo. And now we get to another part of the Mishnah that he is to write a Torah scroll. Okay, Tana, and we taught in the Mishnah. Ubevad shalo yitna okay, so long as he doesn't adorn, okay, b'shel avotav. In other words, it shouldn't be a inheritance, the Torah scroll. He has to write it. It shouldn't be something bequeathed to him from his ancestors. Okay, Amar Abba, says Rabba, afal pi shehenicho lo avotav la'adam sefer Torah, even though a Torah scroll may have been bequeathed from his ancestors, right? Mitzvah lichtov mishalo. It was a mitzvah for him to write it himself. Shene'emar ve'ata kitvu lachem et hashira. Now you should write this song, right? All right, and that refers to the entire Torah. Etive Abai. Abai responded to Rava, V'kotev lo sefer Torah lishmo, and he writes a sefer Torah for himself. Shalo yitna'eh b'shel achirim, that he should not adorn himself with that belonged to others. Melech en hediot lo. Okay, are we talking about the king? Yes, that's the mitzvah, but for a common person, it doesn't apply. Lo. No, says the Torah, the Gemara. Sricha l'shtei Torot. No, it was necessary for the king to have two Torahs. Ukadetanya, as taught elsewhere in a Braita. V'katav lo et Mishneh v'Gomer, that he wrote the second one. Kotev l'shmo shtei Torot. He writes for himself two Torahs. Echat shehi yotzeit v'nechneset imo, one that he goes out and comes in with. V'echat shemunachet lo bebeit gnazav, and one that he keeps in his private treasury. The ota shiotza v'nechneset imo, the one that goes in and out with him. Ose ota kamin kamiya, he makes it like a small amulet. In other words, it's got small letters in it, so he can wear it around himself. Okay, and he hangs it around his neck. Shneamar Shaviti Hashem Lenagdi Tamid. Okay, Shaviti, right? Against me always. Kimimini Bal Emo. Eino Nichnas Ba below the Beit Hamerchatz, but in wearing it he cannot enter the bathhouse. Below Beveda Kisei, and not the lavatory. Shneamar Vaita Imo Vikarabo. Namely, but it says in a pasuk that it's with him and he reads from it. Namely, Makom Haro'ui Likrotbo. Okay, the place where it's appropriate and worthy to read from it. Amar Mar, says Mar Zutra. Ve'etama Mar Ukva, says others Mar Ukva. B'tchilat netinata Torah Yisrael. I know. Let me just finish up a little bit, please. Okay? Okay, but initially, the Torah was given to the Jewish people, B'katav Ivri, okay, a certain kind of a script, okay, ancient script, V'lashon HaKodesh, and in Hebrew, Chazra v'nitna lehem b'yamei Ezra, but it was given again in the time of Ezra, B'katav Ashurit, in Assyrian script, V'lashon Arami, okay, and in Aramaic, okay. So I'm going to stop it in a moment. Okay. Okay. V'yardu lahen Yisrael, when they came down to Israel. Okay. And now we're going to stop right there, and we'll talk about what does it mean Ashurit, what does it mean Kodesh, and so on and so forth.
Go ahead, Rabbi.
Rabbi Green, in another place it says, wife of Shlomo was Basparos, and she was the one who ruined it. His first wife, like the first says, why didn't his Rebbe stop him? But his Rebbe was dead. I owe you $1. The Rebbe was the first.
Okay, I believe you, but I would be interested in knowing what